Next, from the Woodrow Wilson International Center in Washington, D.C., Senator Barack Obama delivers a policy address on fighting global terrorism. This speech is one of the major foreign policy components of Senator Obama's presidential campaign, in which he discusses what he would do in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and to improve homeland security. This runs about 40 minutes.
Let me welcome, I believe, 3 members of the Congress who have joined us this morning. I'm looking around for them. Adam Smith and Robert Wexler and Stephen Rothman. I also want to pause for just a moment to note that this is the 86th day that Hala Esfandiari, our friend and the director of our Middle East program, has been held in Iran's notorious Ivan prison. Hala, of course, is innocent. She is a scholar, not a spy. Her detention is simply outrageous. It is time for the Iranian government to let her go. No issue confronting America today surpasses terrorism in urgency and importance. No one of us will forget the trauma that came to our shores on September 11, 2001. Since then, we have seen acts of terrorism spread, along with a disturbing radicalization in parts of the Islamic world. America faces a long struggle against this threat. Today, we are pleased to welcome Senator Obama as he lays out his vision for a counterterrorism policy. Barack Obama was born to a mother from Kansas and a father from Kenya, grew up in Hawaii and Indonesia. After graduating from Columbia University, he moved to Chicago to work as a community organizer with a church-based group. He then attended Harvard Law School, where he was the first African-American president of the Harvard Law Review. He went on to practice civil rights law and to teach constitutional law back in Chicago. His rise through American politics can only be described as meteoric. He served for 8 years as an Illinois state senator, gaining a reputation for accomplishment on issues ranging from ethics reform to health care to law enforcement. In 2004, he emerged from a crowded field of candidates to win election to the United States Senate. In the Senate, he has served on the Committee on Foreign Relations and has been particularly engaged in addressing nuclear proliferation and emerging threats like avian flu and energy security. He is the best-selling author of 2 books, Dreams from My Father and The Audacity of Hope. He and his wife, Michelle, have 2 young daughters. And as many of you may know, he is a candidate for the Democratic nomination for President of the United States. His talk today is entitled, The War We Must Win. When the senator is finished, he will be stopping in to see other groups who could not make it into this auditorium. He will not be taking questions. Senator Obama, we welcome you to the Wilson Center, and we look forward to your remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me begin for thanking Lee Hamilton, who has provided just extraordinary leadership, both with the 9/11 Commission and the Iraq Study Group, and here at the Wilson Center. Lee has been a steady voice of reason in an unsteady time, and we are grateful for the contributions that he's made to our country. Let me also echo your comments, Lee. My thoughts and prayers are with your colleague, Hala Esfandiari, and her family. I've made my position known to the Iranian government. Their detention of her is unacceptable. It is time for Haleh to be released. It is time for her to come home. Thanks to all of you for taking the time to come out with your busy schedules. I want to acknowledge at least one of the congressmen that you mentioned, Lee, because I saw him just walk in, Congressman Steve Rothman, the 9th District of New Jersey. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks to the 9/11 Commission, we know that 6 years ago this week, President Bush received a briefing with the headline, "Bin Laden Determined to Strike the United States." It came during what the Commission called the Summer of Threat, when the system was blinking red about an impending attack. But despite the briefing, many felt the danger was overseas, a threat to embassies and military installations. The extremism, the resentment, the terrorist training camps, and the killers were in the dark corners of the world, far away from the American homeland. And then one bright, beautiful Tuesday morning, they arrived at our shores. I remember that I was driving to a state legislative hearing in downtown Chicago when I heard the news on my car radio that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. By the time I got to my meeting, the second plane had hit, and we were told to evacuate. People gathered in the streets in Chicago, looking up at the sky and the Sears Tower, transformed from a workplace to a target. We feared for our families, and we feared for our country. We mourned the terrible loss suffered by our fellow citizens. Back at my law office, I watched the images from New York, the plane vanishing into glass and steel, men and women clinging to windowsills, then letting go, tall towers crumbling to dust. It seemed all the misery and all the evil in the world were in that rolling black cloud blocking out the September sun. What we saw that morning forced us to recognize that in the new world of threats, we are no longer protected by our own power. And what we saw that morning was a challenge to a new generation. The history of America is one of tragedy turned into triumph. And so a war over secession became an opportunity to set the captives free. An attack on Pearl Harbor led to a wave of freedom rolling across the Atlantic and Pacific. An Iron Curtain was punctured by democratic values, new institutions at home, and strong international partnerships abroad. After 9/11, our calling was to write a new chapter in the American story, to devise a new strategy and build new alliances, to secure our homeland and safeguard our values, and to serve a just cause abroad. We were ready. Americans were united. Friends around the world stood shoulder to shoulder with us. We had the might and moral suasion that was the legacy of generations of Americans. The tide of history seemed poised to turn once again toward hope. But then everything changed. We did not finish the job against al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We did not develop new capabilities to defeat a new enemy or launch a comprehensive strategy to dry up the terrorist base of support. We did not reaffirm our basic values or secure our homeland. Instead, we got a color-coded politics of fear, patriotism as the possession of one political party, the diplomacy of refusing to talk to other countries, a rigid 20th century ideology that insisted that the 21st century's stateless terrorism could be defeated through the invasion and occupation of a state, a deliberate strategy to misrepresent 9/11 to sell a war against a country that had nothing to do with 9/11. And so a little more than a year after that bright September day, I was in the streets of Chicago again, this time speaking at a rally in opposition to war in Iraq.